on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for Friday, March 15th. Appreciate everybody being here with me. I thought I was going to have more time to prepare for a show, as you heard during Gwen and Chris. The spring breakout game between the Padres and the Mariners was indeed rained out earlier. So we had a little bit of impromptu show, and now we're going to have a little bit of an impromptu Skraby show. But I do have a few things planned for everybody tonight. So stick around. It's a nice Friday night. We have the Aztecs starting their game at 6:30 or around 6:30 in the Mountain West tournament against Utah State. This is when I really start to get into college basketball. And yes, I know this is when everybody starts to get into college basketball, but the stakes are at their highest. And you got all the conference tournaments going on right now. You have the Aztecs winning last night with an incredible Jaden Ledee shot. I went back and watched that shot so many different times, and I don't really know how he made it because there was good defense on him too. That guy's hand was right in his face. And if you look at the still shot that was on the San Diego Union Tribune picture, you can see that guy's hand was right there. And so Jaden Ledee did some big things to will the Aztecs to a win. So we'll talk about that for a second. That game, again, is supposed to start around 6:30 or so. Annabelle in the chat says, happy Friday. Happy Friday to everyone as well. I can't believe it's already Friday, to be honest. I feel like this spring training and the different schedule with Tony and things of that nature, I feel like I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, as they say. So I can't believe it's Friday. Happy it's Friday. Don't really have any plans this weekend. If you have any plans, let me know what's going on with your plans in the chat. You can watch the show on YouTube. If you want to do that, you can just go to YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan. Also Facebook, Twitch, X, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to start with this one. And it's going to be, I'm not going to start with it, I guess. You know, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to start with it, but I'm going to talk about it in the second segment. And someone in the chat last night said, Dylan Cease, I want to phrase this correctly. Dylan Cease is Mike Clevenger 2.0. And I first highly disagree with that. But I actually went into baseball or StatHead or whatever, and I went and pulled the two separate stats for these guys. They're both 4 seasons, and they both have full seasons. So I'm going to go through all these stats and see if there's any sort of similar look to Mike Clevenger and Dylan Cease. Now, Mike Clevenger also came off some surgeries and Tommy John surgeries. I know one of the Tommy John surgeries came while he was with the Padres, so I guess that one doesn't count. But before he became a Padre, he did have a Tommy John surgery. So we're going to do that. But I felt like the Dylan Cease is the next Mike Clevenger line was a little much, got to say. Just a little much. All right. Chance is in the chat. Doomslayer is in the chat. There's thunder and rain in Oceanside. Wow. It's pretty sunny here. That's interesting. Party time, says Gonzo, and Skraby, that's me. Castro says Skraby time. I'm going to have a daily gripe later, but I want to, I guess, talk about it this way because it's going to be about driving because I had to rush down here. And I live up in the Carlsbad area, so I didn't have the most time to get here. In fact, for a 2 p.m. show, this is probably the latest I've ever got here. 1:53 maybe was the latest I've ever got here. But it just seems, and I don't know if anyone else is with me on this, but it just seems that when you have to be somewhere quick, it always takes forever. And today, driving in down the 5, there was 3 incidents. Well, I almost saw one accident because someone was doing that stupid thing where they go and they just race through all the different cars. And one of the guys almost got hit, I swear. But I was driving along in the fast lane trying to, I wasn't speeding or anything, but I was driving along in the fast lane. And this is what really, really bothered me. And it was someone who was trying to get over for an exit, but they weren't changing lanes. You know how those people sometimes just put on their signal for hours and they won't change lanes? Like they're like, oh, should I go? No. And then cars pass them. So this car's going 45 miles an hour. I'm not joking, on the freeway because they don't want to miss their exit. Don't want to miss their exit. And they just kept slowing down so they didn't miss their exit. And I couldn't believe it because we were on the freeway and I had to look behind me to make sure no one was going to hit me. But what's up with people? And just, I know we've talked about this before, and I know that I complain a lot about people, but what's with people just completely disregarding everybody else out there? This is a very selfish move by this person. You miss your exit, you get off on the next one, you go home. That's what I think. You don't go home, but you get off on your exit, the next exit, and you turn around. That's your fault, not my fault. And it could cause an accident. So there you go. That's my pre-gripe to the daily gripe. And I don't know if I'm going to feel better about the daily gripe as we go along or if I'm going to feel worse, but we'll get to that at some point. Maria is here. NY Mike 8 is here. Justin is here. And so I guess you know what we'll do at this point. I don't want to go complain anymore until the end, but we're going to do this instead.
It's time to get caught up on the latest with the news of the day.
News of the day. So spring breakout is the first news story of the day, which was supposed to be the MLB showcase for all of the team's prospects and all of the team's top prospects to play against another team's prospects. And we talked about it last night. I thought it was a good idea to have this whole thing happen because you're able to see some of these guys that you've been hearing about. And I was actually very, very, very excited for this game today because you have some huge names for the Padres playing in this game. You have Ethan Salas, which I really wanted to see because I haven't really been able to see him play in like full. So this would have been nice today to be able to see Ethan Salas and what he could do. But you got guys like Jacob Marcy, Leo Dallas DeVry, I think. I always pronounce his name wrong. I'm sorry, Leo Dallas. But you have all these huge stars huge prospect stars for the Padres, and I was looking forward to seeing it. But it's just not going to happen for the Padres. I guess they said they're going to do something next week, but I don't know how much we're going to be able to get to see it because next week, I believe, is the memorial for Peter Seidler, and I just don't know how we're going to be able to get this game in and get it the same eyeballs that it would have had today. But you know what? We can't really help rain or anything like that, so I'm not going to blame anyone for it. It just kind of stinks that it was canceled. It also stinks because Sammy Lev, he was supposed to do the game, the play-by-play for the game, and he ended up not being able to do it. So I feel bad for Sammy Lev. I feel bad for those prospects. I feel bad for all the people involved, but it wasn't just their game that was delayed or canceled because there was plenty of other games in the Arizona area that were canceled. And I did have a friend who texted me about the weather, knowing that game was happening. And they said the weather is insane. And I looked at the weather report and it was insane. Let's go look at it right now. I still have it open actually on the tab. That was something I used at 2:20 today. And no wonder my computer was so slow this entire day. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now. There's still a ton of rain in Arizona. So there you go. They made the right call by canceling it when they did. So that's the number one story of the day. Number two story of the day is where Blake Snell has been rumored to be talking, or what team he's been rumored to be talking with. And Blake Snell, not the Giants, as Harold Reynolds said earlier. They're thinking that the Houston Astros right now. Ken Rosenthal writes in The Athletic, and I know Ken Rosenthal, did San Diego dirty back in the Max Scherzer days, but I think he knows what he's talking about for the most part. The Houston Astros are at it again, and they are believed to be in on Blake Snell, and the discussions are to pay him big money. So if the Astros go ahead and go after Blake Snell and get him, they're going to be once again another very, very dangerous team. And the one thing I could say about that, thankfully, they are in the AL, and the Padres wouldn't have to see Blake Snell and Josh Hader as much if he did go to the Astros. But you got to think, like, how much is a team really planning on Blake Snell in the first part of the season? If you split the season up in thirds, why would you think you would have him for the first third of the season? I don't really think he's going to be ready say he signs today, he gets to Houston. Opening day is in like 2 weeks. We know that it's going to take more than 2 weeks for him to get ready, and then we know that it takes him a little bit to get started in the season. So maybe if you sign him, you're planning on something like you're planning on having him for the stretch run of the season, or having the good Blake Snell for the stretch run of the season. But there's no real money amounts in this. But there you go. Those are the latest rumors. Astros are pursuing Blake Snell. And again, that would be very, very dangerous if the Astros were to sign Blake Snell. That would not be fun to see in the playoffs or the World Series, I guess. That would not be fun to see during the regular season. So that's craziness. And we'll keep an eye on that. The Yankees are in trouble. And now they dodged the big one with the Garrett Cole not needing Tommy John or anything like that, but he will be out 1 to 2 months. And I'm going to assume that I'm just going to say that he's out for 2 months, because arm elbow stuff for pitchers is very sensitive and you don't want to throw him back out there too early. But they really, I think at the time they needed to make that Juan Soto trade, but I don't know. Their starting pitching is not good. They sent a lot of their pitching to the Padres. And so if the Yankees are going to get Blake Snell, they're going to pay him a pretty penny. Dominic says getting nothing from Blake in the first half, so just normal Blake. I guess that's true. I guess that's really true. EC Money says Blake will take a year to adjust, which could be true. We've talked about it. We've seen it here in San Diego with the Padres. Saw Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Brandon Drury, those guys who came in 2022. It took them a little bit to get going. And that's why, a side note, that's why I'm not sure why everybody is kind of not paying attention to what Juan Soto did when he came to the Padres and what he's going to do with the Yankees. I mean, you got to think it's a new team. It's the same set of circumstances. You're going across the country. He's going to a market that in a fan base that is rabid and will not let him forget things if he messes up. So I don't know why people are just thinking that's just all going to go away for I almost said Blake Snell, for Juan Soto. I think it's still going to be there. It only makes sense to me, at least, to think that it's still going to be there. But we'll see as the season goes along. Everybody thinks he's going to win MVP. Everybody thinks he's going to hit like 7,000 home runs this year. So maybe a little bit of an exaggeration. But I don't know. Everybody thought he was going to win MVP last year, and he started very slow. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But Astros looking at Blake Snell, and we'll see what happens there as well. Aztecs tonight are going to be playing against Utah State. And this game is huge, obviously, for many reasons. But for one reason, I didn't realize this until Chris said it before the end of last show, but it was the Aztecs have made the Mountain West Championship 6 times in a row. So this will be their 7th time in the Mountain West Championship if they make it there. Also, this is kind of a rivalry game, in my mind at least. I don't know if the players are thinking of it as a rivalry game, but Utah State is a team that's been standing in their way. Utah State is a team with great Osabor, who is the player who got Mountain West Player of the Year from the coaches. Jaden Ledee won Mountain West Player of the Year from the media. So those two guys are going up against each other. And I think it's going to be a great game. And I'm just hoping the Aztecs can, get past the whole not making anything in the beginning of the game so that they can start with some points and not have to catch up. But their whole thing lately has been to start extremely cold and then catch up throughout the game. I'm looking forward to this game. Supposed to start at 6:30, so that's coming up. But right now on CBS Sports Network, we got Ohio and Akron, which is a great game that I'm loving right now. I just love Ohio and Akron. That's the one thing about CBS Sports Network I'm not a fan of, is that every game that the Aztecs play is usually either preempted, or they're playing without it actually being on TV because the other game's finishing up. And I know we are on the West Coast, and I know that we're in San Diego, but I don't care about Akron and Ohio. But it's not about me. It's really not about me. Skraby Show here for Friday, March 15th. If you're just joining, the spring breakout game was canceled. We will not be talking about any of that. But when we get back, we are going to talk about Dylan Cease versus Mike Clevenger. I'll set it up again as to why I'm doing Dylan Cease versus Mike Clevenger, but we have that to talk about. We also have some gripes to talk about. I have no idea where the rest of this show is going to go after Dylan Cease versus Mike Clevenger. So stick around, hang out, enjoy your Friday night here on 97.3 The Fan. back here in the Odyssey Palace on 97.3 The Fan. Thank you for joining me. I'm Matt Skraby. This is The Skraby Show. If you want to watch, you can go to YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan, or search The Skraby Show. I'm also on YouTube there. You can go to Facebook, 97.3 The Fan, Twitch, 97.3 The Fan, and X, 97.3 The Fan SD. And me, if you want to follow me, at Matt Skraby, MATTSKRA, as in boy, Y. And I just thought of a possible daily gripe outside of what I already did. So I'm going to write it down right now before I forget about it. And there we go. That's how I do things. If you're wondering how I come up with the show, I'll just be either like walking around with the dogs or something like that. And then boom, a thought goes in and I immediately have to put that thought into the grid, because if I don't, I will forget and it will be lost in the ether, as they say, I guess. We're going to talk about Dylan Cease and Mike Clevenger in just a second, but I want to go through some of the chats that came in through the break, and one of them from X, and the name has Dean Spanos in it with a attempted swear word, so I won't say that. But we were talking about Juan Soto. We were talking about him and how I think he could possibly get off to a slow start. But this person said that's the only reason Judge won't leave. And they're talking about that right field porch at Yankee Stadium, which is going to work very well for Juan Soto. I mean, that is kind of an unfair part of the park. And everybody talks about how it's very easy for guys to hit home runs over that wall. And I know that's why many think he's going to hit a bunch of home runs this year, is because of that right field wall at Yankee Stadium. But I just think that he's going to start slower than we think he is. And so then Donnie Baseball, he wrote in on YouTube and said, Scrabe, I think you're great, but weak take on Soto. He is going to dominate in the Bronx, contract year, etc. Also, Drury was a stud for us as soon as he was in the lineup. The rest of the guys were slow. All right, I'll give you the Drury, Donnie Baseball. And by the way, it's okay to disagree with me. It's okay to tell me you don't think I'm right. It really is. Because honestly, it helps push along the conversation. And if you're respectful and you're not making fun of me, and you're not teasing me like I was teased in second grade, then I will engage and I will talk about it. And maybe you'll even change my mind. But the reason that I say that about the Yankees and Juan Soto is because I'm really worried about their pitching, especially since Garrett Cole is going to be out for the first 2 months. So I went to the projected rotation for the Yankees, and they're saying that now with Garrett Cole out, Carlos Rodon could be the opening day starter. Then you have Marcus Stroman, Nestor Cortez, and Clark Schmidt. Obviously, they have other guys in there that they could throw into the starting rotation, and they're going to have to. Maybe they even pay that money for Blake Snell. That rotation doesn't seem strong for me. Carlos Rodon had a really tough year last year, and the last time I checked, so I could be wrong because he could have made some good appearances since, but it seems like he had a pretty bad spring as well. So I'm not real sure about Carlos Rodon. Also, Marcus Stroman's good, but we know that Marcus Stroman can be up and down. So he's kind of a wild card. Nestor Cortez, I picked him as the AL Cy Young last year, and that was way wrong. That was one of my worst things that I've ever predicted. Also, I am worried about Juan Soto starting slow. And I believe that's what he did with the Padres. I believe he didn't really mesh. He didn't really not fit in, but he didn't really get going like Juan Soto until maybe middle of last year, I would say. I would have to go back and look at the numbers, but it seems to me like it was maybe a quarter of the way through the season or a third of the way through the season. But it's just one of those things that I guess I'm being what's the phrase I want to use, or what's the word I want to use? I guess I'm being a wide-eyed critic, because everything is pointing towards Juan Soto having an MVP season, but I'm just not believing it. That could be also because I'm very skeptical about everything. Giancarlo Stanton, Dominic is asking, Dominic is asking if he's still on that team. I had to read it again. Yes, he is still on that team. Actually, I haven't really heard much about Giancarlo Stanton this year so far. He's going to be the DH of the team, but it's good for him. That means no injuries, all that stuff. But the Yankees are going to be a big story this year. Huge story this year. So there you go on that. Also, one more chat before we move on to Dylan Cease and Mike Clevenger. Javier says, Skraby, you need to understand, and we're talking about why people are so rude on the roads. Skraby, you need to understand there's just too many unhappy people out there who have not done what they wanted in life. That simple. I don't disagree with that, Javier. I don't disagree with that at all. There are a lot of people out there that are unhappy. Doesn't mean you should drive 45 miles an hour in the fast lane on a freeway at 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. as I'm driving to work and trying to make it before 2. So that's what happened. We'll talk about that later. All right, Dylan Cease and Frank just texted me. Frank the Tank says Cortez was named the starter this morning. I'm pretty sure he's talking about the Yankees. I'll get more information on that. That was an ADD moment for me, for sure. Dylan Cease versus Mike Clevenger. So someone on the chat said last night, because they're unhappy with the trade, they said Dylan Cease is Mike Clevenger 2.0 for the Padres. And I disagreed with that statement as soon as I heard it, but my perception sometimes is very wrong. So I went back through StatHead and I wanted to see if Dylan Cease and Mike Clevenger were similar. So I took Mike Clevenger before he was traded to the Padres, which was 2016 to 2020, and then Dylan Cease from 2019 to 2023. Those are the years that he pitched before the Padres, obviously. So, well, let's start with Dylan Cease. So Dylan Cease has started 123 games in the past 4 seasons from 5 seasons. And he's won 43 games. So his winning percent, he's 43 and 35. His ERA over all of that is 3.83. He has pitched 658 innings, and he's given up 280 earned runs, 82 home runs, and he struck out in his career so far 792 batters. That's a lot of batters to strike out. His career ERA plus is 113. So those are pretty good numbers, I got to say, especially with last year included in those numbers. And by the way, I didn't get a chance to say this with Gwen and Chris, but I'm trying to look for this right now. I believe that my Dylan Cease told the San Diego Union Tribune, which I'm glad that he did, but he told the San Diego Union Tribune that he feels like he pitched 30% of his potential last night, or last season. He pitched only up to 30% of his potential, which if he's right, I mean, why is he going to say, oh, I did pitch all to my potential, I was just bad? No, if he's right, this is scary. And there could be someone like Dylan Cease winning a Cy Young for the Padres this year. Wouldn't that be crazy? And I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, so I'll back up a little bit. But those are Dylan Cease's numbers. I'm a huge fan of this trade. And the more we get away from it, the more I am a big fan of it because of what he's already done at the major league level. Now, Mike Clevenger, on the other hand, from 2016 to 2020, he was also a very good pitcher. Like when the Padres made that trade for Mike Clevenger, it was a controversial trade, but it was also a trade that I think everybody wanted to see happen because the Padres needed pitching help in those seasons, or in that 2020 season. And the Padres really needed to get someone in that they thought was going to be able to help them get through the playoffs and help them get into the World Series. But we all know that Mike Clevenger did injure himself again, and he had to get his second Tommy John surgery with the Padres. So before he came to the Padres, he already had one Tommy John surgery. So that's the big difference for me, at least, because your pitching is not as good after a Tommy John surgery. Maybe you can, pitch similarly, but I've heard and I've read, I've never had Tommy John surgery, but it just does change things. But here are his stats. He has appeared, or he started 92 games. He's appeared in 105. He also is 44 and 23 as a record. So he has more wins than Dylan Cease. He pitched 542 innings and he gave up 192 earned runs. He also struck out, where is it, 603 batters. So in, about 20 less games, he's pretty far behind in the strikeouts. But what I found through this is that they're pretty similar. And going into it, I would have thought that it would have been very easy for me to prove that Dylan Cease was not going to be Mike Clevenger 2.0. I don't think Dylan Cease is going to be Mike Clevenger 2.0. I think that Mike Clevenger had an injury to his elbow that ended up spiraling into a second Tommy John, and that's why Mike Clevenger didn't work out for the Padres. It's Irie Fangeek says, I'm trying to jinx you. I would never try to jinx you. I'm just doing this because someone said that Dylan Cease is going to be Mike Clevenger 2.0 on the chat, and I want to check it out. Like sometimes I immediately think I know what I'm talking about. I immediately think I know the answer. But when you look at it, it's pretty similar. And Mike Clevenger, he's not Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease has been healthy his entire career. He's had COVID once. He's made over 30 starts a season for the past 3 seasons. That's the biggest difference for me. And by the way, I guess I should say Mike Clevenger's ERA plus was 141, which is way higher, and his whip was lower. But the injury to Mike Clevenger is what makes me put Dylan Cease ahead and kind of be confident that he's not going to turn into Mike Clevenger, and he's not going to turn into someone who is sitting on the bench for the Padres rehabbing from an injury. And it's not Mike Clevenger's fault that he got injured. It's just, it is what it is. But Dylan Cease is a workhorse, and Dylan Cease is a guy who is going to get you 6 or 7 innings every single night. And he's going to strike out 9 guys or 10 guys. So again, the more I get into this trade, the more I look into this trade, the more I love this trade. Let's see. Brock says Cease is miles ahead of Clev. What are we talking about? I told you he is miles ahead of Clev, but if you look at the numbers, they're the same. Circumstances are very different. Another thing, Michael A. Taylor has been reported by Jeff Passan to have signed with the Pirates. Now, if you had Michael A. Taylor on your list of free agents for the Padres to go after, he is no longer on the list. But Michael A. Taylor is making $4 million with the Pirates. And Chris and I talked about it earlier. And Chris and I both kind of said, this is okay. I would rather, at some point you have to put the future of the team on the guys that you have drafted and the guys that you have developed and the guys that you have already put under contract long term. You don't need to bring in guys like Michael A. Taylor. Now, if they did, I'm not going to complain about it because it's going to be for cheap, but I'd much rather see the younger guys play and try to develop into something than bringing in a guy that you know what he's going to do. He's been in baseball since 2014. And he's been pretty steady over his career, 240 average. He's hit 95 home runs. Last year, he hit 21 home runs, Michael A. Taylor did, but he only drove in 51. He hit 220. His OPS was 720. When you hit 21 home runs and your OPS is 720, it means he didn't hit a lot of other, extra base hits. He didn't have a lot of other extra base hits. I would need to actually do the calculation, but a 720 OPS with 21 home runs seems very low for me. Very low for me. All right, let's see. Be Free 619. Hey Skraby, did you ever try to dunk yet? I remember you and Chris betting on it. Well, we never completed that. So it still may happen. It still may happen. Cactus Man says Merrill going to hold it down in center, so Profar going to be our starter in left. Is anybody else kind of concerned about this is going to be, a lazy take to some people, but I am worried about Jurickson Profar in left field for the entire season. We already saw him the other day kind of tweak his ankle, which again is just a freak accident. But I don't know that he's an everyday guy, and they may have to adjust throughout the year. And who knows? Some of these guys from the minor leagues could just tear up the minors and be ready to go in the majors. But I am not really behind that. I'm trying. The chat is fast right now. If I could take center fielders, I would want Brian Reynolds. Yes, I would want Brian Reynolds too. That dude is a stud switch hitter, center fielder, can run, contact, hit, and AJ has wanted Brian Reynolds for a long time now. Brian Reynolds is under contract with the Pirates, I believe, for the next couple of years. Frank texted me back. Said, yes, Cortez is the Yankees opening day starter announced earlier today. Thank you, Frank. So that's interesting. It's not going to be Rodon, and it's not going to be Marcus Stroman. All right, you're listening to the Skraby Show. I keep saying all right because I'm like, ooh, what else do I got in this grid? But I got some more for you. And I've always kind of wanted to do this. If you want to do like a ask me anything that's safe for work, you could do that on the chat. If you want to go to YouTube, just type in 97.3 The Fan, search that, and ask me. Safe for work stuff. I'm not going to be getting myself fired. But when we get back, we have the Daily Gripe, and we're also going to see about this Aztecs game and when that's going to get underway. So you're listening to the Skraby Show. I appreciate you being with me on kind of a somewhat unprepared day, knowing that I was going to prepare, I promise, during the spring breakout game, but it got canceled. So we are doing Unprepared Skraby Show, and we will continue when we get back on 97.3 The Fan. Back here in the Odyssey Palace, Friday nights, final segment of the week in the Skraby Show. Thank you to everyone who has joined me. I keep hitting the wrong, we call these on the board pots. Keep hitting the wrong pot to turn it down, so that was kind of annoying, but there we go. It's gone. I did find some news, and Dominic on the chat has notified me that the start of the Aztec game is going to be streaming on CBS Sports Network site. So that's where we're going to go for that. It just got underway. I actually have the ESPN box score up. So it's 0-0, everyone. Don't worry. It's 0-0. There's on the CBS Sports Network site here, we have Ohio, or CBS Sports Network channel, we have Ohio and Akron, not Akron. 139 left in the game. Akron is winning 59-56. Oh, great. Micah Parrish already has a foul in the first 22 seconds of the game. Great Osabor has already made a free throw. The Utah State Aggies are up 1-0. 1-0. I asked for some questions earlier. Actually, real quick. Cactus Man says Fam Profar would be a good left field combo. Not hating that. Really not hating that. I know that people aren't Fam fans, but I would take Fam right about now. I think he showed last year he still can help. I'm not going to say he's going to change the entire fortune of the team, but I think that he can help. All right, so EC Money says, who is your favorite DJ, Skraby? All right. I think some might know the answer to this. I guess I don't really have a favorite DJ because I am not a musical person. People in my family have been musical people, but not me. I am not a musical person. I can't play guitar. I can't play the ukulele. I can't play anything. I've tried. I have, because I think it's cool to be able to play instruments and stuff, but I've never been able to do it. So I don't really have a favorite DJ, and that is really a lame answer. I understand that. Oh, Dominic says DJ Tanner. That's actually really good. DJ Tanner is a good one. If you didn't watch Full House, you don't know. But I did watch Full House growing up, and it was awesome. Jaden Ledee gets the rebound. Darian Trammell makes a 3-1 right now. And so the Aztecs are leading, and a foul was called. I'm not going to give you the play-by-play. I'm going to turn that off. All right, so another cool story that I found here in the break, and this comes with no surprise, but USA Today has ranked stadiums around baseball, and guess what was number one again? Yes, you guessed it. Petco Park, number one stadium in Major League Baseball, according to USA Today. So that's awesome, because you're going to a game in a stadium that everybody loves. I know that some people say Petco Park isn't the best stadium. Just like that they say it. Well, I've been to many stadiums across the country, and Petco Park is a very nice stadium. Oracle Park, I've been there as well. It's a nice stadium, but Petco Park is not as cold as Oracle Park. Wrigley, never been there. Really want to go there one day. But Tony told me that everything is too small at Wrigley because it was built like 100 years ago, or more than 100 years ago. So there's not much room for players. The visiting locker room is terrible. Here's the other one I think could rival Petco Park for, I guess, aesthetics and views. And it would be PNC Park in Pittsburgh. PNC Park it's a beautiful stadium. I mean, I can't deny that. I love the view of all the bridges and all of the different buildings behind the park. But when it comes down to it, you're going to watch a Pirates game. I'm sorry if there's Pirates fans out there, but you may agree with me. And the Pirates, they did compete at the beginning of last year, but the Pirates have not really competed since the Andrew McCutchen days, I think. And PNC Park is also very hot and sticky and humid during the summer. Let's see on the chat. M. McKee 23. I feel like Chris, I can't find the stream. Oh, that just gave me another thing to think about. Can you imagine? Because Chris is probably like freaking out right now because he DVR'd the game. I know he DVR'd the game. And so when he gets home and he's going to start the DVR, he's going to see this final part of the Akron, Ohio game, which Akron is up 61-58. 31 seconds left to go in this one. Now Akron is up 62-58. So I'm just hoping for no overtime or anything like that. But let me go on with this list. Now, Coors Field is number 5, which I have been there, but it was a really long time ago, so I can't speak on that lately. Fenway Park is number 6. I've been to Fenway a few times, and Fenway it's a really cool park, obviously, because it's got all that history and it's got all the different things you've always seen, like the green monster. But one of the things about Fenway Park that you just don't really know about is it's tiny. It is so small. It is much smaller than you think it is. I'm not just talking about the seats because the seats are very narrow. I actually, one of the times I went to Fenway Park, bought a ticket. It was very cheap and I didn't know why, but it was because my view was obstructed by a pole. So I just had to keep walking around all the time. But Fenway Park is awesome because you get that feel, you get that old timey baseball feel, you get the fans, you get them singing Sweet Caroline, I had a good time with my friend and some of the other Boston people behind us that were local and they were just making fun of us because we were from California. It was a good time. But Fenway Park, the one thing I will say about Fenway Park is the bathrooms when I went there were disgusting. They were awful, horrific, even. So when you go into a Petco Park bathroom and you say, this is a disgusting bathroom, just think about the Boston Red Sox bathrooms or Fenway Park bathrooms. They're troughs. They're those things. And if you're a guy, you know what those things are. So, yeah, gross. I'll move on now. Never been to Target Field. That's number 7. Never been to T-Mobile Park. That's number 8. Actually, Target Field, Tony said, was really nice, so I'll take his word for it. Citi Field, I have been to. When we went to Cooperstown years ago, we actually stopped at Citi Field when the Padres were playing the Mets and then headed over to Trevor Hoffman's induction. But Citi Field, another place that's incredibly small, and you think it's big. Like when you get to Petco Park, maybe it's because I'm so familiar with it, but when you get to Petco Park, it feels big. It doesn't feel like it's a small park by any means, and you can kind of see why it's so hard to hit there because there's a lot of space and it's not necessarily the best place for the ball to fly. But Petco Park seems big. When you go into Citi Field, tiny, so tiny. And I was really surprised at how Citi Field was set up because on TV it looks massive, but it wasn't. And I enjoyed the planes flying over. But I have been to Citi Field. It was cool taking the subway out there, and it was cool doing that whole thing. But that stadium is very small. I don't know why I'm freaking out about that, but yeah. Dodger Stadium is number 10. I have been there one time. It's cool. It's baseball history. I wasn't there for the Dodgers themselves, but I went up there because my friend had free tickets, and so we said let's go. But the one thing about Dodger Stadium, and it may have changed, this was like 5 years ago that I went to it. The one thing that I hated was how long it took me to get out of the parking lot. It took hours to get out of the parking lot. And maybe I was taken the wrong way. Maybe I got funneled into the slow line, but I don't understand how you can have a 50,000 seat stadium and only have like 4 lanes to get in and out of it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Absolutely no sense. Maybe I did. I mean, I probably did take the wrong way. That's why I'm so angry about it. Back to the Aztecs, I'm sorry. Utah State has now taken the lead 10-5 with 15:48 to go. And this game still is on CBS Sports Network. So we will have to wait for a little bit longer to see the Aztecs on TV. On the chat, Jacob says there's literally one lot for that place. It's nuts. I agree with you. It is literally one lot for it. Dominic says, I'm actually hoping for overtime in the Akron game just to tick Chris off. I'm not going to say that I co-sign on that, but I'm going to say I co-sign on that. Javier says, SDSU wins by a blowout, Skraby. Don't worry. It's 10-5 right now, so I'm a little worried. If you missed our conspiracy theory conversation from earlier, Chris and I went hard in the paint on conspiracy theories and mysteries of the world. And I could have gone another couple hours. But if you missed that, you need to start at 3:40 is when we started that. And just a recap, because it was so much fun. My number 5 conspiracy theory mystery for today in the countdown was the disappearance of Kate Middleton. It's going on right now. And it's very sad, and it's very confusing, and it's very scary. So I hope she's okay, but that's something that we're looking into at the moment. The fourth one was incident at Dyatlov Pass. So if you don't know what that is, it's Yeti, maybe aliens, maybe KGB type thing in Russia in 1959. So just Google Dyatlov, Dyatlov. My number 3 was actually the disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. And this one, tourists from Europe go to Panama, get lost in the jungle. Nobody can find them. Still, no one knows what happened to them. They found their remains. Still, no one knows what happened to them. They find a camera with 2 undeveloped rolls of film, and they develop those rolls of film. Most of the pictures are just of the jungle so that they can get through and use the flash to see the light. Second roll of film had some other strange things on there. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you can go and look up the disappearance of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. My number 2, Robert the Doll. You can also look that up, but he will haunt you, and he's very scary, and everybody is scared of him. Also, Peggy the Doll as well. And my number 1 was the MH370 conspiracy theory, which is that the plane is somewhere in this earth and it didn't actually crash at all. And they haven't found those people. They haven't found any of the debris. Now, I did see on the chat that there was someone who thought that they found they thought that they had found some debris, but I'm not sure about that. Dan says, also, did you hear about the Boeing employee who died before he testified? Big conspiracy. Yes, it's in a big. Dan is also saying that the MH370 plane is in a deep trench. Wow, that's something I got to look into. But here we go. I'm running out of time, so we got to do this.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Everybody's telling me they found pieces of the wing confirmed from MH370, and I just watched a documentary that was made within the last year and a half, and they said that there were things found, but they were also very curious about the guy who was the guy who found them, because he's the only person on Earth that's really found all these pieces, but he keeps finding the pieces no matter where he goes on Earth. Very shady. Very shady. But so Dan said about the employee who died before he testified with Boeing. I did hear about that. Maybe I'll touch on that next week. But my daily gripe for today, I'm sorry to all of you out here who do this on the chat, but when you can't spell my name, even though it's right in front of you, it's Skraby as in boy Y. I do not mind when people don't understand my name. It's a unique last name. There's, in fact, only like 4 of us in the world. Not a joke. Because we made up our name when my grandpa came over here back in the day. But the Skrabbee or Skrabbey, I've seen that as well. Crazy stuff. But I'm not mad at you. I'm just letting you know that it's right there. Skraby. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Be safe on Sunday. And make sure you watch the Aztecs. They are on TV right now, and they have just taken the lead 11-10 with 14 minutes left to go. Thanks, everybody, for joining me on this impromptu show. I will talk to you all on Monday.